Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. Today we are looking at some of my favorite fixed blades, and they're favorite fixed blades particularly for EDC purposes. Before we get to that though, I want to ask you guys to indulge me a little bit of a rant because I, I have no one else to talk to about this and it's making me nuts. So I'm a big fan of Alone. I've watched all of the seasons. Sometimes I've even gone back and watched sections of seasons. So I'm pretty into it. I would consider myself a fan for sure. Um, except this last season has been Alone Australia. I'll pick up these knives and let you take a good look as I'm talking about this. But Australia, I was looking forward to Crocodile Dundee, like just, living in the outback and absolutely killing it and making, hats and boots out of alligator skin. And, I had all of these big dreams. And then, one, they were in Tasmania, but that would have been fine. But honestly, the people, the contestants that are on seem to be the absolute worst group of contestants I have ever seen. Like people that are on Alone who can't start a fire. How did you bill yourself as a survival expert if you can't start a fire? Okay, people who, build the worst shelters I've ever seen. I'll grant that the conditions are not quite as bad, but nonetheless, the shelters are really really weak, and then they cannot catch any food, and their efforts to catch food are so weak. Only one person's building a gill net. No one has a bow and arrow. A couple of people tried trapping by setting one trap, which I'm far from a survival expert, but even I know that you don't set one trap. And so I don't know, guys. Is it just me and my frustration coming through here, my disappointment that it's not, Crocodile Dundee types, or are these contestants really worse than the others I've seen? Please, somebody tell me that I'm not crazy. Now let's get back to the knives. I'm sorry about that, but I just had to share with somebody because this is making me nuts. Okay, back to the knives in question. We have the first option here, the H2. And I wanted to bring this in because if you're interested in EDCing a fixed blade, this is genuinely a great option. It's a little smaller, a little thinner blade stock, and a little smaller in the sheath even than the other two options, making this very, very easy and very comfortable to carry. And by the way, it looks fantastic. The sheaths that these, especially, I mean, yeah, Lionsteel just does a great job, generally speaking, on their sheath. I have a couple times I've had to burn a thread off or something, but generally I've been very, very impressed. And this is no exception. I've carried this for the last couple of days purposefully in preparation for this video, along with these other two. I've been going out of my way to carry them extra, and you just don't even notice that you have this. Now, it is a little smaller, okay? So we've only got about a 3-inch blade, slightly thinner blade stock, and we've got the pinky ring there, which I guess could also be used in like a reverse grip, but it's not terribly comfortable in a reverse grip. I really don't think, at least for my hand, this does not work well. It does work reasonably well with the pinky grip and makes us pretty comfortable in hand. Okay, so first option is the sort of very EDC friendly size and weight. Obviously built with a bit of a defensive thought process in mind with that retention ring. Or even, when you're working, I found a knife with a ring on it like that can be handy if you're, multitasking and there's a possibility of dropping that knife. The ring works pretty well in that regard. So that's your first option. It's not super hand filling. Okay, so I wouldn't recommend this if you're really, really got tons of super hard work that you're going to be doing. You're going to want a bit more of a substantial handle. Okay, the blade is certainly long enough. It's fairly thin. You can see this wood's been out here for a long time, but it cuts quite nicely. It's pretty thin behind the edge, and that makes it quite capable for, if you're the type of guy who uses your knife for a little bit of food prep. It works well for slicing because it's not very thick blade stock and it's pretty thin behind the edge. Just the length is that only sort of sort of hiccup. I don't know if you're trying to cut pineapples all the time, or grapefruits, maybe something big and that that needs a bit of reach. That might not work, but otherwise, very very capable option. Um, as I said, the only drawback I see is because of that smaller handle. If you've got a ton of really hard cutting, fatigue could become a bit of an issue over time. All right. So something a little bit smaller, but to get that smaller size, you've got to make some trade-offs, and that comes in the form of a shorter blade, slightly less girthy handle, meaning a little extra fatigue than perhaps something a little thicker and stockier, such as the M4. So the M4 is sort of an EDC size. It's thickest in the handle and it's the heaviest of all the options. As you can see, it also, the sheath is only set up for belt carry, uh, just typical hanging carry, not with no scout carry option. And that it loses points for that for sure. But nonetheless, I've carried this on my belt lots of times and had no issue with it. It's certainly the thickest in terms of overall sort of toughness and stockiness and durability of the knives that I've got out here. It cuts pretty well, but I maybe wouldn't call it amazing. Okay, let me hold on. I've got a couple little hunks of wood here that I can do a little bit of batoning. And I think, of course I'm out of frame. Why wouldn't I be? Hold on. Let's move these around a little bit. There we go. So in order for me to not hit the camera, guys, I do need to be out of frame just a little. But I feel pretty comfortable with this. I've batoned quite a lot, in fact, with this particular knife. And even to give this a twist and break this apart, I'm pretty confident doing that. All right. I don't know if I'd want to do this to the same degree with the other options. We've got a bit of a knot here that I'm going to have to fight my way through. All right, I want to take this one more time. Let's just grab the M2M here. Now I will say this is a little easier because I'm halfway through, but either one of these, the blade stock is the same thickness. I feel pretty comfortable batoning with either of the first two, with either of the larger two, the M2M or the M4. All right. And honestly, it's not quite as easy. So I'm going to take just half of my material here. But it's workable with the H2 as well. All right. So back to the M4. All right. I've got a G10 handle on this one. It is available in micarta and a couple of different kinds of wood. It's a little thicker behind the edge. Okay, there's a little more material there, which does add a little bit of toughness. It looks like I may have... Oh, no, yeah. I did. I forgot about this. I had not... See how I did roll the blade a little bit? I've sharpened it, and I don't know, I just can't bring myself to sharpen it so much that I remove that completely. I'll let it take a couple sharpenings. Anyway, this has a lot of use on it, and I absolutely enjoy this knife. What I would say about it is it's balanced sort of in the direction of toughness. It's a little thicker, it's a little heftier, it's certainly thicker behind the edge, all with the idea of making this a little more durable, but still slicey enough. Like I've used this for kitchen work, I've used this for skinning a couple deer, I've used this for, various things where you don't want something big and heavy. And if I do some sort of curly cues here, you can see that it does a fine job. Okay, it's slicey enough, but it's definitely not going to be as slicey as either the M2M or the H2. Like you probably can't see this because you can't feel what I'm feeling, but the way this bites into the material is noticeable. It just eats in a little easier. And I think I can say the same thing in preparing for this. I did a few different cutting tasks to try and get a feel for how each of these blades performed. And in general use, okay, that is, and that's how I like to think of EDC knives. Sort of, I never know what I'm going to be using them for, and they better be decent at as many things as possible. My favorite is the knife I'm holding here right now, because that full flat grind means it's pretty thin behind the edge, and it keeps its thinness for a fair distance up the blade, but it's still got that thick, confidence inspiring blade stock that I really like. So the other thing we got to touch on here is sort of the girthiness, if you will, of these handles. Both of these are pretty good. The M2M is a little bit smaller, but not so much smaller that I feel like fatigue is going to be an issue. So both of these I feel pretty happy if you had to do a lot of hard, long cutting work with them. They're going to hold up pretty well. I would consider the H2 a little bit lighter duty. And of course, that trade-off is that, it's smaller. So it's kind of, people are willing to accept that smaller size, smaller handle, all of that, because of the lighter weight that you have to deal with. I do want to come back to the M2M for one other thing before we sort of make some general concluding remarks, and that is the scout carry. Okay, scout carry is really, really significant on any knife, really, but especially here. This is not a huge knife. As you can see, if I put this side by side, hold on, with the H2, it is not much bigger at all. It's bigger, okay, but not much bigger. And on a belt, the difference in weight is unnoticeable. It really is. You would never ever know. Okay, the M4, again, we've commented on this. It's gets moved into a slightly different category because of the fact that it's only going to be a sort of dangle type of carry. All right, so I wanted to just throw in that sheath comparison and point out both of these are easily, they're very, very comfortable as a kidney carry, which is how I've set them up, sort of with a cross draw, where I'm reaching across like this, grabbing it, and extracting the knife that way. Both of them work really, really well in that configuration, and both of them are very, very comfortable in that particular setup. All right. So now it comes down to sort of some concluding thoughts, okay? And how would I pick if I was picking any one of these? Well, for purely EDC purposes, okay, that is, I'm not going to be doing any bushcrafting. I'm not going to be doing any, survival situation type stuff. I'm not going to be lighting any fires. I'm not going to be skinning an animal. Okay, I'm going to be opening packages. I'm going to be maybe doing some light food prep stuff, some slicing stuff. If I don't know, take my lunch to work and I've got to slice up some tomatoes for a sandwich or something. For all of those roles, plus the defensive role accommodated by the ring there, I think the H2 is a great option. Really, really like the setup for ease of carry and a fairly comfortable and easy to use sort of light-ish duty fixed blade. Now, having said light duty, that's a little bit of a misnomer with a fixed blade, right? This is still going to be stronger than virtually any folding knife, and so it's definitely no slouch. Okay, but if I'm going to be doing something a little more substantial, some type of survival task, I'm going fishing, and maybe I'm going to want to even fillet a fish or have to do some you know, remove a hook or any kind of thing that might involve me cutting into some wildlife, okay, I'm hunting, whatever the case may be, I'm going to want to lean toward one of these two. This one, with a greater emphasis on the food prep, skinning side of things, really, really excels in that department. Slicey and capable. It's still the same blade stock thickness. It's just a little thinner behind the edge. All of these are M390, by the way, so good edge retention, good corrosion resistance. But so anything where it's more slicing tasks, all right, I'm going to be wanting to go with this guy, and that even includes, making feather sticks. That thin, slicey edge really can create some curly cues very easily. All right. And this is one of the things that I actually think about when you're cold, when you're trying to start a fire in a bad situation. I don't even really have to think about this, okay, because of that extra thinness behind the edge. However, with the M4, I've just got to be a little more attentive to what I'm trying to achieve. Okay, it still works. I've done lots of skinning with this. I've done lots of kitchen stuff with this. I've had it for a long time, so I've done a bunch of stuff that, you know, I've done a little bit of prying with it and various things like that. It still does the job without a doubt. I keep forgetting that I keep moving out of frame here, guys, and not showing you. So it absolutely still does the job. I just have to pay a little bit more attention to exactly what I'm doing. The trade-off for that is I've got a little stockier, heavier duty option. All right. Not that I'm anticipating, by the way, breaking a fixed blade. But you guys know how it is. You do something stupid, pound it through a knot the way I did a minute ago. And you could have a negative outcome that you're not really looking for. All right, so let me know what you guys think about alone in Australia. Tell me if my frustration is purely my own or if you guys get what I'm saying there. Fine. Secondly, let me know which of these you would pick for your purposes. For me, I find myself very inspired by the beefiness and ruggedness of the M4. I find the H2 very comfortable to carry and easy to have on your person and not really even know you have a knife with you. And finally, the M2M kind of lands in a balance point between those two places. It still carries very easily, but the handle is a little bigger. The blade is a little bit thinner. So the slicing jobs, it definitely lends itself to that. And with that extra length, even some kitchen work is very easily tackled with the M2M. So those are my thoughts on how these compare, and hopefully that might help you to pick one or the other. I have done full reviews on, I believe, all of these. They may not all have posted yet. For sure, the M4, it's been in tons of videos. The H2 and the M2M, I've recorded videos more recently, and I honestly can't remember whether they're going to post first or this one is. But whatever the case may be, if you need more information on one in particular, you can go and look at my full review of that knife. All right, thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We will talk to you soon.